Not even Ukraine's elite troops were spared from the Russian executioners in Donbass. The story is nearing its final conclusion. Russian forces have completely dismantled the most highly trained units of Ukraine's armed forces, a decisive blow to the Kyiv regime. The elite troops, deployed in a desperate attempt to regain positions in the region, have been annihilated along with their sophisticated NATO-supplied equipment. We are talking about a crushing victory, one in which Russian forces have achieved what many thought was impossible, eradicating one of Ukraine's last hopes of resistance on the Eastern Front. Slaughtered, Ukraine's elite troops are buried underground. The fierce war raging in Donbass, particularly near Pokrovsk, has left an indelible mark on the military history of both Ukraine and Russia. In the past weeks, an irreversible disaster has marked a turning point for Ukrainian forces, particularly those considered the elite of their troops. The relentless Russian offensive has wiped them out, delivering not just a military defeat, but also a devastating moral blow to the Kyiv regime. The massacre of Ukrainian elite forces near Pokrovsk, also known as Krasnohorivka, is a testament to Russia's ruthless strategy, which has decimated Ukraine's best-trained and best-equipped units. Amid intense combat, Russian troops have made an impressive advance, annihilating entire elite units, along with the sophisticated Western weaponry supplied by NATO, weaponry that was supposed to be the key to Ukrainian resistance. Among the destroyed equipment are Max Pro armored vehicles, HMMWVs, and the feared Leopard tanks, symbols of cooperation between Ukraine and its Western allies. These war machines, once thought indestructible, have succumbed to the overwhelming power of Russian forces, revealing a bitter truth. NATO's war machinery is not invulnerable and certainly cannot counter the unstoppable strength of the Russian army. It is important to highlight that the Ukrainian troops attempting a counteroffensive in this strategic area, specifically in the village of Shevchenko southwest of Pokrovsk, suffered an unprecedented debacle. The elite units deployed from various parts of Ukraine, including the Kherson region, were almost entirely wiped out. In fact, reports from Russian security forces confirmed that not only were combat units destroyed, but the soldiers themselves were annihilated inside their armored vehicles, which stood no chance against the relentless Russian assault. The losses were not just in equipment, but signified the collapse of Ukraine's combat capability on the Eastern Front. Among the stories of this disaster, one stands out, that of the drone operators known by the codename Tahi Madara. These elite Ukrainian armed forces members, experts in electronic warfare and coordinating airstrikes, were eliminated in a brutal Russian attack that not only destroyed their equipment, but also made it clear that even Ukraine's most technologically advanced forces could not compete with Russia's superior battlefield strategy. The blow was devastating, not only for the morale of Ukrainian troops, but also for the Zelensky regime, which had staked everything on a counteroffensive meant to change the course of the war. Promises of a swift victory and the expulsion of Russian forces from Donbass quickly evaporated in the face of fierce and well-prepared resistance. This massacre is not only measured in human losses, but also in the loss of key territory that Russian forces have successfully conquered. In the context of Russia's unstoppable military advance, it is crucial to understand that the defeat of Ukrainian troops near Pokrovsk is not an isolated event. It reflects a series of accumulating defeats in recent weeks, where Russian forces, capitalizing on their successes, have begun advancing not only southward, but also towards central Ukraine. Reports from Russian military analysts observing the progress of Russian forces in the region indicate that the failure of Ukrainian troops in this sector could trigger even faster advances toward key areas like Toretsk and Chasiv Yar. This could leave Ukraine's armed forces without an organized defense. The collapse of Ukrainian defenses near Pokrovsk is not merely a military setback. It is a devastating psychological defeat for the Kyiv regime, which has based much of its legitimacy on resistance against the Russian invasion. This loss symbolizes the breakdown of Ukraine's front lines, the morale of its troops, the confidence of its population, and the credibility of its leadership have been severely damaged by this disaster. Losing elite units in this crucial region means Ukraine is facing an irreversible decline in operational capabilities, potentially leading to the total disintegration of its armed forces in other areas of the front. The advance of Russian forces is not simply about pushing back Ukrainian troops. According to defense analysts and experts, the fall of Pokrovsk could mark the beginning of a decisive advance toward the Dnipro River. Losing this key city, along with the troops stationed there, would open the path toward central Ukraine. In this regard, Austrian Army Colonel and military expert Markus Reisner has highlighted that once Russian forces take full control of Pokrovsk, their pace of advance will accelerate significantly. The lack of defensive structures nearby would facilitate an unstoppable push that could even threaten Ukraine's capital, Kiev. Political analysts also suggest that the total collapse of Ukraine's armed forces could lead to a scenario similar to the division of Germany during the Cold War, when Berlin became the focal point of conflict between East and West. In this context, some speculate that Ukraine might be divided, with a demarcation line along the Dnipro River, similar to the border that once separated East and West Germany after World War II. This scenario is not mere speculation. Some experts believe is a realistic possibility if Russian forces continue their advance without facing effective resistance. The Ukrainian defeat near Pokrovsk, therefore, is a milestone that signals the beginning of the end of resistance in the east of the country. The collapse of elite troops in this region is not just a setback. It is a sign that Ukraine's ability to maintain an organized defense is critically compromised. The combination of destroyed high-end equipment, the annihilation of elite forces, and continued Russian pressure indicates that Ukraine's future, as it existed before the war, is on the verge of irreversible change. The Zelensky regime, which had pinned all its hopes on resistance, now faces a monumental defeat with far-reaching consequences, not just for Ukraine, but for the balance of power in the region. For many Russian experts, the path to peace appears closer than ever. However, they argue that this scenario can only materialize once Ukraine's defensive capabilities are completely dismantled. The fall of Pokrovsk and the destruction of its elite troops are not just a military blow. They are a harsh reminder of the reality facing the Kiev regime, an inevitable and painful defeat that has marked the beginning of the end of its resistance. The recent events in Pokrovsk mark a significant turning point in the ongoing conflict, highlighting the devastating losses suffered by Ukraine's elite forces. The destruction of highly trained troops and advanced Western-supplied military equipment underscores the overwhelming superiority of Russian forces in this sector. Beyond the battlefield, this represents a severe psychological and strategic blow to the Ukrainian government, weakening its ability to sustain organized resistance. As Russian forces continue their advance, analysts suggest that Ukraine's defense structure is on the verge of collapse, with potential repercussions reaching beyond the front lines. The fall of Pokrovsk may accelerate further territorial losses, bringing into question the long-term stability of Ukraine's military capabilities. Speculations about the country's division or a major shift in the geopolitical balance are becoming increasingly relevant as Russian forces consolidate their control. With the destruction of Ukraine's elite troops and critical strongholds, the possibility of a decisive Russian victory seems closer than ever. If this momentum continues, the conflict may enter its final stages, reshaping the region's future. Don't miss our next video, where we analyze the potential consequences of this dramatic turning point and what it means for Ukraine, Russia, and the global power structure. Stay tuned.